right. How's it going? Oh, no, I need to charge this thing. Okay, so Genesis 4, verse 9 and 10. God asks Cain a question, and he already knows the answer to this question. He asks, "Where is your brother?" But Cain doesn't confess. He lies, he mocks, and then God reveals the truth with a heavy statement. Your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. These two verses are loaded with grief, sarcasm, justice, and grace. We've seen Adam and Eve confronted before, but now the focus shifts from hiding from God, but now the focus shifts from hiding from God to avoiding responsibility for someone else. This is where the story of Cain depends. This is where the story of Cain deepens. And now it's not just about murder. It's about what happens when we don't take responsibility for our actions and how they affect others. Hi, my name is Philip Anglade, and welcome back to our daily Genesis Bible study. I know we're in a different space today. We're making some moves. Every day we slow down, we unpack one verse at a time, and sometimes two, and we do it together. We reflect, we ask questions, and we grow in the Word one step at a time. If you're here for the first time, go ahead and be sure to make sure you not just click on the subscribe button, make sure that one's clicked, but also make sure that you click on the subscribe button, make sure that you click on the bell, because now when we actually go live at about 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can be able to get alerted, hey, we're on live right now. And make sure you also stay to the end of this particular video, because we also ask a reflection question, and that reflection question helps us to really dive in deep into what the Word is actually saying. So let's say you want to be able to respond to this reflection question. You can put it in the comment section below. You can also contact me directly. Just go to philipanglade.com, and on there, all my details on how to connect with me are on there. You could also be able to see all my other work that I'm doing as well. So let's go ahead and walk into this moment with Cain, and let's listen to how God handles even the darkest sin with a question and with grace. So let's keep on reading. Enjoy the clip. All right, so here we are in Genesis chapter 4, verse 9 and 10. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" And he said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Then he said, as far as God, "What have you done?" The voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. So here's some of the Hebrew. You can be able to pause the video so you can be able to get to know some of the Hebrew words that are new with us. Let's go ahead and continue. So here are my observations when it comes to these particular verses. What I'll do is I'll share my observations. Generally, I'll share the community observations. Right now, you could be able to share your observations inside the comment section below. And then I'm also going to share the insight of what I call Anthony, our AI best friend, to be able to go ahead and share its insights for each verse, each portion of the verse. So let's go ahead and do this portion. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" So for me, it's striking that once again, God begins with a question. Just like he did with Adam, "Where are you?" in Genesis chapter 3, verse 9, Now he's asking Cain, where is your brother? So there's a shift here from a personal accountability, Adam hiding, to a relational accountability where Cain's responsibility for Abel. Interestingly, God never asked Adam where Eve was. I thought that was interesting. But here, God emphasizes the brotherly bond. Both questions appear also in verse 9. So in chapter 3, as far as Adam, it's verse 9, right? So chapter 3, verse 9. And then also for chapter 4, verse 9, he's asking just about the same question, which I find interesting. So both give an opportunity for confession before judgment. So that's my particular thought for this particular part. Now, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts in the comment section? Go ahead and put in your thoughts for this particular part right here. That the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? So this is Anthony. I think Omni would be a cool name for the AI. Anyway, so Anthony's observations for this particular verse. So God already knows what happened. This question isn't for information, it's for invitation. Again, just as he asked Adam, where are you, to draw him from hiding, here God seeks to draw Cain out of denial. The focus, and remember, like God literally said to Cain, like, hey, you got to control whatever is going on because sin is crouching at the door and its goal is to literally overtake you, but you must master it. And it's obvious that that's what has happened. Not only has he killed his brother, but now he's also deepened in it by not sharing to God exactly what has happened. And it's so unfortunate. What we must do is, even when we do sin, because we're all going to do something, whether it be getting angry or just, I guess that's my thing, getting angry, losing my emotions. But I must be able to have that anger bow down to Christ and his thoughts, and be able to soften my heart and allow and pray for my heart to be able to be softened, so that I can be able to seek forgiveness, and to forgive the other person as well. So the focus isn't just on the crime, but on the broken relationship between the brothers. God isn't just concerned with how we treat others as he is with our personal standing. So let's go ahead and do this particular portion right here. So this is my observations for this part. And he said, I don't know. So when Adam was questioned, at least he responded honestly and with fear. I heard the sound of you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. But Cain, he literally just deliberately lies, unfortunately. Not only that, but he also adds sarcasm along with it as well. This shows the hardening of sin when left unrepented. A heart unwilling to be able to soften after sin will continue spiraling further from the truth, unfortunately. So let me go ahead and continue with this portion. I broke these two portions up. So this part right here where it says, am I my brother's keeper? Now the word keeper stands out to me because essentially Abel was the keeper of the flocks. So it's obvious that he connected, like, because he was the keeper, and then when it comes to his actual gift that was given, now he's like kind of mocking it in a sense. So his very offering was tied to his stewardship. So Cain's jab, you would say, is clearly sarcastic and likely fueled by jealousy that led to murder. Jealousy to murder, that's insane. He's throwing Abel's keeper role back at God with contempt, trying to mock the position and distance himself from any obligation. And this is totally unfortunate. I do pray, like, man, like, if I were to sin, I pray that it doesn't spiral that far into something as terrible as this. I pray the same for others as well. So going back to, I don't know, am I my brother's keeper? So Cain's deflection shows not just avoidance, but disdain. Um, the sarcastic tone implies rebellion. The phrase "my brother's keeper" echoes back from the theme of stewardship in Eden. So I think I find it interesting that he, the AI, brings it back to Eden. I bring it into a little bit closer when it comes to Abel's career, I guess you would say. So the stewardship of Eden, which essentially is, if you were to view it in this light, as far as Cain doing the work that Adam was supposed to be doing, as far as being a keeper of the ground, that was now cursed. So where Adam and Eve were tasked with caring for the garden. So Cain resists this responsibility, mocking the very idea of being entrusted with somebody else's well-being. It shows how far he's drifted from both God and his family. So now let's go ahead and get to this portion right here. What have you done? God echoes the language used in Eden, where he asked Eve, what is this that you have done, in Genesis verse 13, 3:13. This repeats the pattern. This repeated pattern shows that God consistently invites confession before judgment. It reminds me that when I'm dealing with my daughters, I must model this pattern as well. Asking questions like, where are you and what have you done? To invite their hearts forward. The Bible isn't just a guide to the righteous, but a model for discipline and compassion, 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this portion right here. So the voice of your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. So even though God knew what has happened, he still gave Cain space to tell the truth, even after he was rude to him. So I have to also be able to control myself anytime that one of the girls is getting kind of rude. I gotta kind of, I'm gonna just let that slide and continue to be able to give grace upon you before I have to bring in the judgment. And to be able to keep my calm through, because God could have just snapped on him like, what, boy, right away, but he didn't. So so even though God knew what happened, he still gave Cain space to be able to tell the truth. That is grace, and that's what I must remind myself over and over. And I thank God that he's given us an example of how to be a true father. So this part immediately reminded me of Jesus, the innocent one whose blood also touched the ground. It makes me wonder, was Abel sinless? Because the thing is, all we hear is that he's born, he does a particular, job as far as tending towards the flocks, he gives a good gift, and then he's murdered. And it makes me think about Jesus in sort of the same light. He's born, he does miracles, and then he's murdered for our sins. But then he raises again. Abel isn't raised again. I guess that's the main difference, I guess you would say. But obviously Jesus is God, so it's a whole other ball game. But it makes me think, as far as Abel being sinless, and it also makes me think about John. Is he sinless? John the Baptist, at least. So the imagery here is powerful. Blood has a voice, and not just any voice, one that reaches heaven and demands justice. So let's go ahead and see what the AI thought for this particular section. And again, any portion that's bold here, I want to be able to hear, hey, write down a comment in the comment section. What are your thoughts about each one of these portions right here? It doesn't have to be something, spectacular. Just what I've realized is I get to be able to receive the word way more when I'm interacting with it a little bit more. And this is what I have found as the relationship with God that we're searching for. To be able to really dive in deep into the Word by responding to God, because this is God's voice in us, in our minds and our hearts and our spirit and everything. But now we can be able to respond to Him by asking questions and asking God, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts about this particular part? This is just my thoughts, and then this is how I've been able to dive in deeper and have a deeper relationship with God myself. So this question right here, what have you done, is filled with sorrow. God isn't just confronting sin; He's mourning loss. The blood crying out gives us a spiritual reality behind injustice. No wrongdoing goes unnoticed in heaven. The ground which once produced life is now witness to death. It has been defiled by Cain's act. This verse is a sobering reminder that sin has visible and invisible consequences. 100%. Man, it makes me think about how I am and the things that I've done and the sins that I've committed. What God, how He views me. And when it comes to the Ten Commandments, I deserve death. And I'm so grateful that I've still been able to keep this relationship with God where, even when I do sin, and even if my heart is hard, He still gives me the grace to be able to stay in great relationship with Him. And I thank God for it. And I thank God that, I can be able to have that, that feeling in my heart where it's like, I gotta go to Him. As before, it wasn't the same. And I thank God that I continue to have a deeper relationship with Him and continue to go to Him, always. All right. So here's the summary, what I call the Holy Spirit reflection, where it's all of us. Generally, it would be, your thoughts in this as well. What we're looking to do here is truly be able to form a digital community of, in the book of Acts. Imagine we're in the upper room, and the Holy Spirit fills us, where it's my thoughts as far as my observations, your thoughts and your observations, but then also the AI. And the AI, it's not its own thoughts, it's seeking whatever has been written on the internet for these particular verses and putting it all together. So this is right here is the summary of the thoughts together. So God's question of Cain mirrors the question He asked Adam and Eve in the garden. Yet this time his focus turns outward from where are you to where is your brother. God is deeply concerned with our relationships. And we have to have that concern for our relationship with God as well. When David is writing in Psalm, he's pleading to be able to continue to have the relationship with God. And this is the same thing that I pray for as well. Lord, please allow me to be able to stay in connection with you, forever. And not just myself, but also with my children as well, and their children, and so on and so forth. To have that deep connection with you, Lord. So God is deeply concerned with our relationships, especially with one another. So Cain's heart, hardened by jealousy, has grown cold, not just towards God, which is so unfortunate, but towards his family. His sarcastic deflection, "Am I my brother's keeper?" shows how far sin has taken him from love, responsibility, and truth. Yet God still gives him a chance to confess. He models grace even after murder. The image of Abel's blood crying out from the ground echoes the future sacrifice of Christ, whose blood also speaks from the earth. This time, it's not just crying for justice, but offering redemption. The Bible's repeated questions, "Where are you? What have you done?" are not just for the people in the story. They are for us today, 100%. I asked my daughter, I bring this up to her, where it's hey, this is what sin has has turned into for Cain. And it's like we must be able to master, this sin that revolves in our human nature, and we must remember, the steps and the guidance that God has given us, so that we can be able to know how to master it the way that God has mastered it. So the Bible the Bible's repeated questions, where are you? What have you done? Are not just for the people in the story, they are for us today. God still asks us to come out from hiding and take responsibility, not to shame us, but truly to restore us. So here is the reflection question, the famous reflection question for this particular verse. And I truly challenge you to be able to answer this question. You could be able to answer for yourself, truly, seek into yourself and ask God to be able to allow yourself to soften your heart, to be able to say the truth about this particular verse and this particular question. And I know what it does for me. It allows me to be able to break through and forgive, to forgive myself and to forgive others. And I've learned that forgiveness allows me to be able to get so much closer to God and to be able to release. So hopefully you can be able to do the same for you, and I pray the same for you. So Cain tried to avoid responsibility, but God still heard Abel's blood. So is there anything that you try to avoid taking responsibility for, but God continues to bring it up in your spirit? What might your next step of ownership look like? So for myself, the only thing that pops into my mind is taking responsibility of the way that Amy acts from time to time. So I must take responsibility for the way that I have acted, where now she models me. So especially when it comes to seeking attention or expressing anger, this is stuff that I have done where I've shown what anger looks like, and now she models me. And it's unfortunate that this is what I have done. So I can see that the transfer of my own anger has seeped into her, and now matches it. Instead of learning how to control herself, my next step would be to be able to pray for Christ to be more present inside of me, to help me to control my anger and to lead by example. I want to follow God's model, first by asking, where are they, right? Where is she? And then asking, what have you done? With patience and grace. I can reflect, if I can reflect that, I know that our relationship can be able to begin to change for the better and to become better over time. So this is my response to the reflection question, and I pray that you can also be able to answer this question for yourself as well. So that was Genesis chapter 4, verses 9 through 10. And see, God's question to Cain and Cain's careless answer. Where is your brother? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? It's a sound of sarcasm. The sound of a hardened heart. But God doesn't ignore it. He replies with something that still shakes our soul. Your brother's blood is crying out from the ground. Your brother's blood is crying out to me from the ground. Even when Cain refused to speak the truth, Abel's blood still spoke out to him. This reminds us that God hears what's hidden. He hears injustice. He hears what is silent. And in love, he still gives us grace to be able to have a second chance, to be able to confess, to be able to repent, and to be able to be restored. So again, Our reflection question for today is there anything that you've tried to avoid taking responsibility for, but God continues to bring it up in your spirit? What might your next step of ownership look like? So if there's something that comes to mind, again, go ahead and write it down in the comment section. You could be able to, even if it's simple or vulnerable, it might be the beginning of true healing. But let's say you want to contact me, but let's just say that you want to contact me personally. That's completely fine, I understand. Go ahead and contact me at philipanglade.com and then find my resources on there. So if you're still tracking with us through our Genesis playlist, don't forget, go ahead and click on the like button right now so that you know, hey, check mark, I've gone ahead and finished this particular video. And then on the next video, make sure that you go ahead and click on the like button from the beginning of the video so you know that you go ahead, so that you know that you started that video. So let's keep on walking one verse at a time. And as always, just keep reading. Bye-bye.